Hello. Thank you everyone for joining me today. We're going to continue on the application that I've been streaming or working on my stream for the last little while, kind of on and off here, and that is HTBox. So let's just get started. So this is a project for the humanitarian toolbox called TwoWeeksReady. And first thing we're going to need to do here is, let me see, I have some unsaved changes, so I guess that'll be my first order of business here. I thought I was just going to pull the latest code over from GitHub, but let's go and just have a look at the GitHub repo, see what's new on the project, and see what we can pick up to work on next. So quick recap, TwoWeeksReady is a product around trying to promote emergency preparedness, being prepared for having supplies for, as they say, 72 hours for like short-term types of emergencies, but we should also try to have supplies for ourselves and our families and our pets to last 2 weeks in the event of a natural disaster such as an earthquake, tsunami, tornado, hurricane, all those awful things that we wish didn't happen, but they do, and it's best to be prepared for them. So this app is all around supporting that preparedness and trying to help families have a plan in the event of those types of scenarios. So, taking a look at what's happened recently, our friend Sean Wildermuth has done some work around the family plan feature, and I think we're kind of building up on the project towards a big beta launch and beta test of the application. So we'd like to make sure that certain features or that we have some features that are ready for testing. So we're going to take a look at the two features that I know we've done some work on and are partially implemented. That's the family plans and the emergency kits. So we're going to take a look at those, make sure they're working, and see if there's anything we can do to get those a little bit closer to completion. So last time I was streaming, I had James and Simon helping me, and we were mob programming, which was a lot of fun. And we did some work there, and I'm a little bit curious why I have changes that haven't been checked in my branch here. So before I go and pull the latest down, I'm gonna have a look at what my local changes are. Oh, okay, this is fine. So yeah, this is expected. I'm just gonna undo these changes. So I was running these scripts to create the resources within Azure for the beta environment. We have this development environment that we deploy to every time a change gets merged into the master branch. And that's cool, but can be in a broken state often as we're in active development. So our plan is to have, I think, 3 environments with this application. There'll be that development environment that we continuously deploy to, but then we'll have a beta test environment that we can promote to. So when we're happy with the current state of the dev environment, we can take that version and promote it up to the beta environment. And then when we're happy with the beta testing, we can take that and promote that up to a production environment. So within the app, within the code for the app here, we do have this create front-end resources.sh and create backend resources.sh, which are just some scripts using the AZ CLI, the command line tool for Azure, that goes and automates the creation and configuration of all of those resources. So I was running those locally, and that's just line ending changes is the only reason that was here. And I have no idea why package lock JSON has changed, but I'm going to discard that too, because that's kind of weird. And so now I don't have any local changes. I can do a git checkout master and a git pull to get the latest code. And we can see that there have in fact been some changes there. So why don't we fire up the app and see what's new? And if you're watching, you have any questions about the app or what I'm working on, feel free to reach out and chat, and I'll try to make this a little bit more interactive. Okay, so there's 2 things I need to run locally to run the app. There is the API, which is here, and that is a I can open it in Visual Studio, or I can open it in Visual Studio Code. I've kind of been sticking with Visual Studio Code here to work with this application. And with that, we have this .code workspace that I can just right-click and say Open with Code, and that opens up all the folders that contain all the projects that are required to build the application and run it locally. And there is within here, I know that Sean added something that goes and configures my local CosmosDB emulator to make sure that it has all the containers that we need. Or the collections, I always confuse those two terms, the collections within the database that will store the documents for this application. So I am just going to have a peek at where that was because I don't quite remember. Where it might be under Tools, Cosmos Emulator. Here we go. So he built this. I'll just open this in Visual Studio Code as well, just to have a quick peek. And I'm going to zoom in so that everybody can see what we're working on. So in here, it's really just a simple Cosmos, or a simple command line application that he wrote that runs this Cosmos initializer that goes ahead and, yes, restore. Need to do a .NET restore for that to work. That's just going to go and connect to my local Cosmos DB and create any collections that might be missing. So that way I know that I have everything set up locally that I need for the application to actually run. So I should be able to actually just come in the terminal here, I think do a .NET run, and that should create whatever is needed. Oh, no command specified. So what's the command that he's asking for? .NET. How do I run this thing? .NET run setup. Like this. There we go. That might fail because actually I don't even have the Cosmos DB emulator running, so I do need to run that first. Weird, that search isn't working. I don't know where that is. Okay, so I'm running my Cosmos DB emulator on my machine here. So now that that's running, Cosmos DB emulator, when you run it locally, you get this little web UI here, and you can go and kind of take a look at what you have within it. So I already have this TwoWeeksReady database created, but I don't have all these, all the collections. I only have a couple of the collections that are required. So hopefully running this will just create what's needed. I don't know what's going to happen if it tries creating the database that already exists. Okay, that already failed. You know what? I'm just going to delete and start over within my emulator because probably these are incorrect anyway. So I'm going to delete this database, 2WR, and then I'm going to run this command to get everything set up locally. This version of the Cosmos DB emulator is Windows only, but the team is working on a version that would run in Docker. It's a Linux-based emulator that would be cross-platform, so that if you're on Mac or Linux, you would also be able to run a local Cosmos DB emulator, which is great. I'm very much looking forward to that because this Windows-based emulator can be a little bit clunky at times. I've had some issues with it before, so looking forward to that being publicly available for everyone to try. Okay, so if I refresh this now, I should see there's my TwoWeeksReady database with all the collections in it. Looking good. I can close this. And now I should be able to run the app and everything should be ready to go. So I'm just going to hit F5 actually. and that should fire it up for me. Why did it take me to a Docker extension here? It's weird. Okay, so it's compiled, and what's it doing here? I don't think that did what I expected it to do when I hit F5. What did a build? This worked last time I did it. What are my build tasks? Did those change by chance? On a build, publish, func. So that's the one I would expect it to be running, but maybe it's... Oh, I have to tell it which project I want to run, so no. How strange. This is not the way this has looked in the past for me. What changed here? Because I used to be able to just hit run when I'm in this project. Let's go have a look at GitHub. What changed here? Anything change inside this .vs code folder? Nope, not for 6 months, so that's pretty weird. Okay. Huh, that's strange. Let me just try opening that again. Wonder if I have all of my extensions installed that I need installed. Oh, these changed, so that might have something to do with it, and I don't know why those changed. Oh no, that was for that other emulator. No, I'm going to discard those just in case they're throwing this thing off. And then I'm going to see what this says. It still doesn't look right. Does a build. It's doing a restore. Well, that's very confusing. So what it's supposed to do is run the functions project and spin that up so that it's ready for the front end to connect to. I'm just gonna abandon that for a second. We're gonna go into the front end part of the app, and we'll launch that in Visual Studio Code. So the front end here is built using VueJS and Vuetify for the front end components. This one to run it, I run on the command line npm run serve. I'll compile the app and start up a local development server for the front end. Well, that one seems to be working at least. But what is going on here? Do I have the Azure Functions extension here? Azure Functions. It is here. That is super strange. Why isn't this working? Deploy to function app, that's not what I want to do. I just want to run it, and that always used to work for me just fine. So the only launch command that's here is attaching to the Azure Functions piece, but it's not doing it's not running the Azure function, which is weird, because I would expect it to do that. We have tasks here that say this is essentially the one that we want to run. Man host start background. What on earth changed and what am I missing here? I think I might just have to abandon this and go to Visual Studio because I can't quite figure out why this just stopped working all of a sudden. Yeah, why don't we do that? So I'm just going to open the API.solution, see if that works. Back in our old friend Visual Studio. This shows up as more of a classic kind of thing here, and I should be able to just hit F5 and run it. That's going to bother me. Why that's not working. Oh, so Neil says, can you try func start and see if that starts function up? Yes, I can do that. Let's go do that now while we're waiting. What's also strange is that this is just kind of hanging here when I attempt to run it in Visual Studio. So let's have a look. I am back in here. I do func start. Unable to find project root. Okay. Do need to go into the 2weeksReady folder, I believe. So it does start it. Thank you, Neil. That does work. The only annoying thing about that then is that I am unable to actually debug the application easily by just launching the debugger. Which is strange. I don't know why that was working previously, but now I can probably. Is it gonna let me attach to it at least? No, it's just sits there hanging forever. That is really weird. Well, I can run it at least. It's not ideal because, as I said, I can't seem to debug it. But at least it's running, so we can take a look at what the app looks like. So I've got the front end here. Let's launch that in the browser. Here's my app. I'm going to log in. It remembered who I was. Cool. If I go to my family plans, this is the new stuff that I haven't actually looked at yet. So the idea with family plans, actually, I'm not super familiar with this feature. Let's go take a look at GitHub and see what information we have about it. So for family plans, the idea is like a shared document with contact information, actions to take in the event of an emergency, what to do if you're in certain places, things like how to turn off your gas, water, electricity. Basically, it's your plan for your family in case of an emergency. That makes sense. So the idea is you have your family plans. You can share them with people, and then once you've created them, you can go and edit them. And when you look at them, you have various information like where it is, your home phone number, who your contacts are, and all these various pieces that you kind of build up. You'll also be able to add images. So like an image for here's how you evacuate in case of emergency, that kind of thing. So you can build up these plans for your family and then share them so that everybody has easy access to the information they need in the event that emergency happens. So let's just see if how this feature works and if there's anything left for us to work on. So can I create one? Here's the plan name, so we'll call this my home plan. And I hit save. Looks like that called my function and did a upsert of a family plan, so that's good. And what happens here? Can I edit my address? As a Canadian, I know only one zip code, and that is 90210. And it applies to every state in the country. So I've created some very basic info here. What happens when I go back? My family plan. Okay. So that's working. Now this is interesting because I was testing this after we deployed it and I was getting errors. So I'm just a little bit curious why that is. Oh, I think I remember. So when I went to the dev version, which is dev dash, I don't know, 2wrdev.azure edge.net. You can't see that because it's tiny. That's the test version of our app. The dev version that gets deployed continuously. A lot in here as well. And here when I go to my family plan, this is connecting to the database and Azure Functions that are hosted in the cloud instead of my local one. When I go to create a family plan, I'm able to do the first part, my family plan, and I hit save, and that works. But when I go to do I'm getting lazier with my test data here, but this was failing. It says an error occurred. Which is weird. So save. An error occurred and it just says 400. Bad request. And I don't think we have any information on what the error is specifically. All right, so this is something I wanted to fix, or at least try to get to the bottom of. Oh, cannot read property ID of undefined. Is that related to this? Well, that's after it gets the 400 error. Okay. You know what I'm going to do is fire up the Azure portal. And I'm going to open up App Insights and see if we can get a little more info on this error. Because it's weird that it's working locally, but it's not working in the deployed version. So let me just switch to the right Azure subscription here. And if we go to our resources for the development environment, here's my App Insights here. I'm going to go to the live metrics, and then I'm going to go hit save again, and we'll see if we see any additional info on what this error is. So this should give us a live stream of any telemetry that's coming through for the app. And when I come into, where was my app? Quickly approaching that point where I have too many browser windows open. All right, so here I hit save. Again, I get that error. And there is an error. So it says, error creating and querying the document, family plans. Interesting. Why would that be? I wonder if, okay, let's compare what those collections look like locally versus what's in Azure. So if I look at my local emulator, here's my family plans. Oh, is it family members that's missing? Maybe that's the problem. Okay, so we have family plans, and the settings on family plans are that there's a user ID partition key. And I think the problem might be the lowercase I on the partition key, which is kind of funny. I bet that's going to solve it. So when I look at 2weeksReady dev here, I kind of hastily did this manually, made some assumptions when I was doing that, but we have Okay, so it's family plans, not plan. I'm going to delete this one since it doesn't need to be there. This isn't how I would recommend managing your infrastructure, by just making manual changes like this, and it's kind of how you get into these kinds of errors in the first place. It's all good. We will sort this out. Okay, so the problem I think is that my partition key here has the uppercase I. And is it even going to let me change that? I don't think so. Fortunately, there's like really no data here yet. There's just these couple of ones that I had tried creating. So I'm going to just nuke this whole thing. I'll delete this container. And then we'll create a new one. So it's a bit of an inconsistency that we might want to address. In most places, we're doing user ID with the uppercase I, like a camel casing, I guess, of that property. In this particular case, we're doing, it's just all lowercase. So here the container is family plans. And the partition key is user ID. So I'm quite certain that's going to fix the problem. If we look at the code where in the API where it's going to save those family plans, it will be referencing a partition key. Okay, so this is the get, this is upsert. Somewhere in here it will reference a partition key. Interesting. Where would that be? All right, so when you do the create document URI, I believe, somewhere here it's referencing that partition key. That's interesting. Why is that not immediately obvious to me? Should be in there somewhere. Well, where user ID equals, oh, is it, if I go to the family plan class, which would be where, that would be under common probably. Here we go. So that's where the user ID is being two lowercase tiers through this JSON property attribute. So when it gets serialized to JSON, when it's getting saved over in Cosmos, that's when that property name is being converted to the user ID with the lowercase I. And when I had created the collection with the partition with user uppercase ID, then it wasn't able to find the actual document it was looking for when we were doing the upsert. So that all totally makes sense now. Okay, so let's just confirm that the collection was created. There it is in Azure. And now when I should be able to create this now. So this will be my family plan home. Save that. I can add my address. Hey, it's saved. That's awesome. I can add a phone number, which has to be in a specific format. 555-222. Save. I can add emergency contacts. Joe. Our guy. Oh, I'm gonna have to invent more phone numbers. Okay. Is this stuff all required? Can't tell if this is doing anything. Is it doing anything when I hit save? Ooh. Oh, it isn't. Okay, maybe this part hasn't been implemented yet. That's fine. This all seems to be, well, that part didn't work. However, it probably has not been implemented. Routes and locations, children, pets. Okay, well, we've got a good start on that feature for sure. My main concern was that wasn't working, and I thought maybe there was something we needed to change in the code, but that does appear to be working now. So we've got ways to go still on that feature, as we do with a lot of them, but this one Sean has been working on, so I'm probably going to let him carry on with that feature. And what I'm going to do is take a look at we're going to take a look at the feature that I have been working on mostly, which is around the emergency kits. So we have the ability here to come in and define them, add an emergency kit. So I have my test kit, and we can, for some reason, specify a color and an icon, which is kind of takes up a lot of space in the UI there. Then we can add kit items. So I could have like water. I could have like a case of 24 water bottles kind of thing. And that would be part of my kit. I hit create, and that's going to save the kit, which failed. Oh no. Why did that fail? So partition key is required. Okay. What did we get wrong this time? Seems like we're having issues a little bit with the way we're defining our partition keys here. Let's take a look at a kit. So a kit has this user ID, which to my understanding is supposed to be the thing that has the, oh, you know what? I bet that tool that we ran might actually be or have something that's not quite configured right. So if we look here, let's just confirm what it was doing. So when it created emergency kits, it did it with the ID partition key, and we actually want user ID there. All right, I'm going to nuke my local database, and we'll start over. That's going to be a good fix to put in, just to make sure that people can get up and running easily if they're going to try contributing, which anybody can do. It's an open source project, and we have lots of features that need to be built out. So if you're interested in contributing, take a look and see if there's anything that jumps out at you that you'd like to work on. Oh, this is the whole database that I'm trying to delete here. So 2WR. And I am going to .NET run here. Oh, .NET run / startup. No, that wasn't it. Setup. All right, back to the app, running locally. I should be able to create a kit. With some water. Okay, so that looks a little better now. I can also save them. That changed things on it, so that's all good. And then I can delete them. So that functionality is all working now. I'm actually going to do a quick pull request here, just with that one little change, just so that it's kind of on its own, the one thing that I did. So I'm going to do git checkout, new branch, Cosmos initializer, fix. Fix the partition key for the emergency kits collection. Now I'm just going to go push here. Hey, Open Window 365, thank you for the follow. We are going to push this tiny little branch here and then head over to GitHub and do a pull request. It's not much of a pull request, but that's okay. It's small incremental improvements is what we're all about with software development. All right. Pull requests. And here we go. That's probably enough of an explanation, and we'll just do create pull request. Cool. Okay. Sign up is broken. Yeah, that's not a issue. Emergency Kits UI implementation. Right. So one of the big things that's missing for us so far with the concept of an emergency kit is this idea of a base kit. So the idea with the emergency kits feature is that when you go to create a kit, what you're actually going to do initially when you create one is you're going to select from a list of base kits that an administrator has defined inside of the application. These base kits define things like for every person you should have 6 liters of water or gallons, I suppose, or I'm making up the number, don't take my word on for that on what you should put in your emergency kit, but it's telling you for each person how much of every specific thing you should have. So the idea is that we have kind of a calculator that we start out with when we're creating an emergency kit, where we'll pick which base kit we're basing it on, and we say how many people, how many pets we have, and how many months. The over months we'll probably come back to. That's to calculate the cost and like how much money you might need to set aside to actually build that kit. But let's just see if we can start to build out some of that functionality. So emergency kit details. So the flow for creation and update of a kit and adding or removing of kit items is not wireframed, okay? But what we want to do is have the ability to select from a kit type, so that's those base kits when we're creating, and then we're going to populate a starter list. So that's instead of having to add each kit item like we were doing manually, it would actually populate it for you as your starter kit so that you kind of know where to start when you're building out these kits, and then you can kind of adjust accordingly for your family. And then we have that ability to create a kit from scratch is kind of what we have right now, and display the list of kit items. So let's see if we can't get this part figured out. And the only thing is I'm going to need some base kits in there for that to work initially. And loading those base kits, I actually can't remember the status of that. Let's just take a quick peek because we have an admin app that is built using Blazor. And it should connect to the same CosmosDB as far as I know. And if it does that, we can hopefully define our base kit, and then we'll have something to select from. Because right now the problem is it's kind of hard for me to get started on that feature just because when I go to look at my base kits, oh, we don't even have that in here yet. Shoot. That's something else that needs to be added to the... Okay. Well, let's see what this looks like and what the status of it is. So they have the ability to define base kits, but I don't know if they actually get saved anywhere yet. I think it's just a stub repository so far. How can we get some test data in here so that we can actually get working on this? Interesting. Definitely some work that needs to be done here that's a little bit further than I can get, I think, with the time we have today. So how do we want to tackle this? Let's maybe change plans a little bit. And think. Let's see if there's something else we can work on here that would be kind of fun. Nope. All right, what other functionality could we do here? Or maybe we could just stub out the base kits for now. Really, I just need the data to be there because I think the API is already in place. I just need to fill in the data. So let's go back to that branch where we were fixing we had that little fix for the initializer. Git branch. Oh, I'm still in that branch. Okay, so I'm going to nuke my database again for the however manyth time to WR. And we're going to add base kits because that's something that's missing from it currently. So if we look here, base kits, it's just base kits, all lowercase. And /ID is the partition key. I'm just going to confirm that that lines up with the implementation here. So when we look at kits here, we have the ID. Base kit has an ID, a name, an icon, and a list of base kit items. Okay. And a base kit item has quantity per person or pet, 14 days, quantity unit. Okay. And a photo URL. Well, if we can start even just with the name description, I think I can just kind of load in some data manually into here. What I wanted to do is just make sure that the API piece where it's actually dealing with base kits. So here's my base kit API. The collection name is base kits. And I think we're good there. Okay, so let's go back to that little initializer app again, and we're just going to add the new, add one more collection to this thing called base kits with an ID key on it. And then we're going to do .NET run setup. Okay, coming back over here to my emulator, just to confirm. There's my database again, there's my base kits. It's an empty collection, but that's fine. And so is emergency kits. Everything's empty, but that's good. At least we have all of the collections that we need. And let's just go ahead and commit this change. So adding base kits. And we'll push that up to our PR. And now our tiny little PR is just a little bit bigger than it was before. So let's head over to our pull requests, and I'm just going to make a note of what else I did. So this is now fix the partition key for emergency kits, added base kits collection. Okay. Now we're in a good place, I think, where we can go and start working on some functionalities. So first thing I'm going to do is go and create some test data, and I'm just going to do that manually right within the CosmosDB emulator. It's just a JSON document, so I can just type in a document and fill in some data there. These base kits aren't super complicated, fortunately, in terms of the data structure. So here I'm looking at base kits. I'm going to say new item. And here we need an ID, which is going to have to be like some kind of GUID, I suppose. I can create a GUID, I think, here by doing new GUID. No. Oh yeah, I guess the right command. Actually can't remember if these are GUIDs. Let's go double check. I'm gonna pin this to the side, zoom in a bit so everyone can see. Oh, that did not survive the browser zoom very well. Okay, looking over here though at my base kit model class. So a base kit has an ID, which is a string, so a GUID, a name, an icon, and a list of items. So those are the things that we're going to want to put in here. Let's put this here. I wish I could. Okay, that's good enough. So we'll call this one a standard 2-week home kit. I have no idea what these are supposed to be called. There is actually some test data defined somewhere in the wiki, but we'll just start with this. So now we have the icon. These icons are currently, the way they're implemented in the UI, we kind of have a list of them when we look at these emergency kits. So let me just bring that up. In here, we have a list of icons somewhere. Here we go. So I'm just going to call it the, I don't know, the ambulance one. Sure. We'll start with that. Okay, so that has that icon as a starting point for when people create that kit. And then we need a list of items. So items is going to be an array of base kit item. And I'm just going to put a couple of things in here so that we can test this out. So again, we've got ID. Oh no, that's auto-completing. I don't want it to be the same ID. That would be weird and not a good idea to reuse GUIDs as IDs across items. A name, a description, a photo, which I'm just going to leave blank. So photos is kind of a whole other can of things, but this is an important one, so quantity per count is going to be important because that'll allow us to do like the whole calculator thing for how many to do. So let's say this has 2, and we have a quantity unit. Okay, so we'll call it gallons. Clean drinking water. We need 5 gallons per person. I mean, I have no idea what the actual thing is. I should really know that. I'm going to work on this app. And then we're going to do another one, just have a couple items in here, like I said, so that we can test. One more GUID. I bet you're all thinking, that is a weird way to create GUIDs. But you know what? It works for me. What's another thing we need? Some food. Food for eating. We need 2 buckets of food. This is just test data. I just really need a way to test this out. So there's one base kit. I'm going to add 2 base kits just so that we have the ability to, show them in the UI. So here's another one. This will be my go bag. And I suppose I should pick a different. I'm just going to leave them both as ambulance. It's not a big deal. And what we're we're going to do is just say that it's mostly going to be the same kinds of things, but I'm going to do like different quantities so that it's obvious for testing. We'll call these like energy bars instead or something. Act with calories and energy. Calories is energy. We need 5 bars per people. Keep hitting Control S out of habit. That is not a keyboard shortcut that works typically in the browser. Okay, so we have 2 base kits. Now what we should be able to do inside of the UI at least is on that create screen, so when we go to create a new base kit, or when we create a new emergency kit, here, what we can do is have a drop down here to select from the existing base kits as a starting point. So that would be the that little bit that we did have in the mock-up here for the emergency kits UI, where you can come in and say create an emergency kit for however many people, and select your base kit that you're doing it based on. So let's see if we can do that. And before I get too far along here, I am just going to check out and do a new branch. So git, this is going to be emergency kit create from base. Yeah. All right, let's take a look at the front end piece. I'm pretty sure all the backend API pieces are already in place for this, so we don't have to change much, but we do need the ability to query for those base kits within the front end here. So we already have this emergency kit API. I could create a whole new one called base kit API. Yeah, probably that makes sense as a thing to do, so I'm going to do that. Instead of emergency kit API, this is the base kit API. And what were the endpoints for that? If we take a look at our API here. Did this open twice? I can close that version of Visual Studio Code. I just have one too many things on the go there. So that was this one. When I look at my base kit API, it is base kit create, base kit update. We actually don't want those for the front end. We just want the ability to get a listing of all the base kits. So that's just base kits, and that's the endpoint. So here it's just going to be base kits, and then we actually don't need any of these other ones in there. So that will get us a list of all of the base kits, and that is the API class, at least in here, or the API methods within the front end. The other thing that we need to add is probably a new store within our Vuex store. So we have this emergency kit store here that has the ability to do all of the like create and add and save emergency kits. So what we need here in addition to that is another one for loading those base kits. And I'm just, again, going to copy the emergency kits one as a starting point, rename it to base kits, and rename this store to base kit store. And I'll just continue down my renaming path. I'm going to import base kit API, the base kit API that I just created. And this is going to be the base kit store. Now, this one doesn't need all of the saving and selected kit. Oh, maybe it needs selected kit. I'll leave that in there. Don't think it needs item. So all we're going to be doing is basically loading that list so that we can put it in a drop down and then reference it to create the new kit that the person is trying to create. We don't need the ability to add because that won't be done within this application. We won't be saving base kits, so that can all go away. And yeah, it's basically just base kits.getAll. And then, right, so the action is the thing that my Vue component is going to call when it wants to load those base kits. And this is where we have this pattern that we follow within the application where we check to see if the application itself is online. If we're online, then we go ahead and call the API and try to load the kits from the API. And then when we get the data back, we actually go and set it inside of a local forage, which is just like so that we can do local caching of the data. And if we're not online, instead of going to the server, we're going to actually serve that data from cache. So we'll just try to get it locally instead. And then I don't think we need any of this other stuff that goes and gets individual emergency kits. We're just going to get that one list that has the whole thing. We won't be creating any or saving any, so this is a much smaller store here, or module within our store than the other ones. So we're really just loading what is essentially like reference data for the application. But we now have our base kit store in place. It should be able to go and make that call, load those two base kits that we added to the database. And let's go see if we can reference that from within our component. What is the error it's giving me here? Yeah, that probably isn't a real error. All right, let's see here. So one of the things it's doing, it's pulling in Vuex map state from the Vuex component. Loading our icons, that's not super important. Somewhere in here, actually no. Right, so here when, just copying this pattern, so on the emergency kit list, when we create that page, or when that component gets created, it goes and gets the list of emergency kits. So that's how it gets your list of emergency kits to display in the UI. And we're going to do something similar when we create the emergency kit create component. We're going to go and get our list of base kits from the store. And then once that's there, we'll have the list that we'll grab from state, and then we'll be able to display that in a dropdown in the UI. So let's see if we can start with that. If I can get something displaying in the dropdown, I'm going to call that a win as a starting point at least. So I don't think we have a created here yet. We don't. So I'm just going to pop that in here. So we have created. When this component gets created, I'm going to call base kit store.get base kit list. Easy. And then we need that computed, which I think we already had. But what I'm thinking here, yeah, we have computed there. So what I'm going to do is say base kits equals the list from the base kit store. So this is exposing to my component that list of base kits that we had loaded. And now up on top, what we should be able to do at the very top of this page, okay, so we had the text field kit name. I'm just trying to think through the UI since we didn't have an actual mock-up of this. I think we'll have select a base kit at the very top of the page. And from there, if you choose to select one, then it can go and fill in your initial list of items. So let's just add a new row to the top of the page here. And that is going to be a vSelect. And the label is going to be base kit. And the vModel is something that doesn't exist yet. So we need to tell it here which one is our selected base kit. So inside of data, I'm going to have base kit. I'll call it selected base kit. And it's just going to be, I'm going to call it null for now. I don't know if that's going to work, but let's see what happens. Okay, so that's going to be selected base kit. And v dash items, I want to say. How do we do selects here? It is items, right? So items equals base kits. I think that's what I called that computed property. If I scroll down, we have base kits, yes. Okay, so that should create a drop as basically a drop down here of all my base kits, but I do need to tell it what to display inside of the and this isn't going to be required. It's an optional thing for you to select from a base kit. There is a way, because this isn't just a list of strings, I need to tell it like what I want the name and the ID to be of that thing that we're displaying. So for that, it's been a little while since I've used Vuetify, so let's head over to the docs and remind ourselves how it is that we use this thing. One thing that I really like about Vuetify, it's a really rich set of components that you have to build your application. It's open source, but also has some options for enterprise support if you want it. But the docs are great, and that's just such an invaluable thing to have in any kind of tool that you're using within an application. Okay, so I said it was great, but I'm actually going to be able to identify how to do this. Item text is the thing that I was looking for. So item text is going to be name. Cool. Let's go have a look. I'm going to pop open my browser window, or my DevTools here, and let's just see what happens. I think I saw an error already. Not read property list of undefined. Oh, I know what I did. So I created a new store, a new module within my Vuex store, but what I didn't do was include it in my global store. So that was silly. But what I need to do here is also import that piece that I created. That was the base kit store. Base kit store. And then I need to include it here. So the Vuex or Vue was complaining because I couldn't find the thing that I had created because I hadn't included it in my list of modules here for Vuex. All right. Hey, look at that. So we've got our standard 2-week home kit and our Go bag that we can base this on. And okay, that's good. That's good. Thinking through what we want this UI to look like. I'm kind of making this up as I go just because I'm not entirely sure since we're lacking mockups on here, but let's just take a look at this again. So Emergency Kit Calculator provides the ability for the user to create a new listing. Brings user to the emergency kit details. Okay. I wonder if it's almost like a multi-step thing, right? Like we don't necessarily want to cram this all onto a single screen, but maybe when we hit plus, when we go to create a new kit, you have the option to do like a create from scratch and a create from kit type. Selection of kit type on creation only. Kind of need to talk this through with somebody who is working on the actual emergency management side of this application here to know what they really want. Manipulation of starter kit list on. All right, how do we want to tackle this? Well, for now, I'm just going to do it kind of in line, and then we're going to talk about how we can split it out. So we have the ability to select a base kit here, and then what I'm going to do is, so I'm going to say, create from kit type. Ooh. That's probably way too long. What does that actually look like in the UI? Oh, that's okay. Create from base kit type. And then we wanted that like number of pets, number of, is that how the calculator thing worked? I don't know what the over months does, but let's start with this part. So it says people plus pets, and then calculate, create. Okay, so let's do this. Let's do, we'll do another row here that has like the number of people, number of pets. So this is going to be, it's not a select, it's a text. It's not a text input either. What's the control that we use in Vuetify for number inputs? Number, text field, number. I think I just do type number is all I have to do. Yeah, I think so. Okay, so we're going to do 2 columns here. Actually, we'll do 5. This is going to be, what did we call it? It was people. What I'm trying to build is at least part of this little people plus pets thing. So we'll say it's people. It's this one. Pets. So these are things that I'm going to have to add to my data field. And then we have 2 columns left. I'm just going to put like that giant plus in here. So that's going to be just a plus. And it's probably going to be really tiny. We're going to have to bump up the font on that for it to look reasonable. People plus pets. I'll come back and tweak that. So let's default some data here. So we had number of people and number of pets. And the type of that is going to be a number. What does that look like now? Okay, default's a little better. It's a number input now. There's going to be some validation we need to add to that. Maybe that can be a drop-down button, different base kit options. Sorry, I'm just catching up on your comments there. So is there a create emergency kit button to create new emergency kit? Yes, so creating a new emergency kit is the button here. So we hit create. You're on to a good point. I do think that maybe it should be like there's kind of 2 different options on the drop-down button. I don't know how many base kits they're going to have, but yeah, so we could have it as a drop-down button that either just had like create from kit type or create from scratch, just 2 options. And then when you create from a base kit, it would take you to another screen where you just fill in the details for your base kit. And then it takes, when you click go, it takes you to the create kit screen. Or if I'm going to have to review with them how many base kit types they expect to have. If it's not a really big number, then yeah, maybe we can just have it a drop-down button that says, that just lists out all of the options here. So I'll review that. We do have a weekly stand-up with the team where we have a chance to ask them. So this is a team from Washington State that we're working with on this application. So we should be able to review that with them, and I'll bring that up. That's a very good idea. We'll see if that's a feasible option for us. So thank you very much. Open window 365. Okay, so this UI doesn't look great, but we'll come back and address that. And okay, so assuming we have a base kit selected, we have our number of people selected, what I want to do is just add a little button here that says create from base kit, I suppose, or they had a calculate button. I don't know if that's the right thing to use, but you know what, I'm just going to call it apply. And like I said, the UI definitely needs a review since we don't really have a good mock-up there to know that I'm on the right path, but at least we can get some of this functionality built and we can kind of move around those UI components as we need. But if those pieces are in place, then what I want to do is I'm going to create another row here. And we're going to say, we're going to have a V button, which I think is VBTN. And I'm going to call it, what do my other buttons look like? Here we go. So my goal here is that we, when we click this button, am I doing that right? Click, add click. I am going to create from, so it's going to go and initialize your list of kit items based on the data that we had in the selected kit item. And I got a lot of validation and stuff to do, but I kind of want to see if I can get some concept of this functionality in place. People text field can be, another comment here from Open Window 365. People text field can be simple label. Have plus and minus buttons on either. That's true, it can. I'm using a text field, text input field, so it does have like the, oh, where did my UI go? It does have, you know, the spinner things or what and whatnot that will render differently on various, depending on which device you're on. Kind of like to leave that more up to the specific browser for the device rather than trying to build up my own control for that. But that's an interesting idea. It would probably look better if we did it that way for sure. Something we can come back and look at again too. Going to be a little bit quick and dirty on some of these UI pieces for today, at least. Let's see if we can go and do this create kit from base kit. So what I want to do with this method, this is the method that's going to get called when we do that. So we're going to say if selected base kit is, if there is a selected base kit, then what we're going to want to do is for each item inside of there, and actually what I'm going to do is just do a console log to make sure that this looks the way I think it will. Console.log. Let's just make sure that this looks the way I think it does before I write a bunch of code against it. Okay, so if I come in here and I select this one, I say 2 people, 1 pet and apply. I say, okay, so this is actually not what I thought it was going to be. It's only, the selected item is actually only the selected text of the item, and that's not what I want. I actually want the full item to be the thing that I'm bound to, not just the name. So that is a configuration thing with this Vuetify component. So if I go back to the select, the thing that I want to do here is I'm doing a binding. Nope, that's not it either. Select. Okay, in this example, we also use return object proc, which returns the entire object of the selected item on selection. So that's the one I want, is the return object option. So if I add that to that select that we had at the top, that should make the V model that I'm bound to, that should make it the full object instead of just the name of the object that was selected. So let's see if that works the way I think it will. I'll refresh that. I have some errors here that we better take a look at in a minute. Okay, now I do have a list of, yeah, so this is my full thing. So there's my icon, ID, name, everything's here for the base kit that I selected. So I'm glad that I console logged that out to confirm that it was what I thought it was. But now what we should be able to do is go and create our list of kit items based on those base items. All right. So I don't necessarily need to be console logging that out now, but what I can do is say, just adding a bunch of guards in here, and probably more than I really need, but this is just checking to make sure that the selected kit actually has a list of items on it. And then what we can do is say this.kit items equals this.selected kit.items.map. And then we're going to say for each item, we're going to return a new kit item. So we're going to map those base kit items to a list of items. So the other thing we're going to do here is say this dot total. I got to go back and look at what those items looked like. You know what? Best place to do that is probably in my emulator. So they had quantity per count. I'll just call it total person count. I'm going to count pets as people. So we're going to say this dot number of people plus this dot number of pets. And we're going to do a, is there a math dot? Max of 1 comma that. Just in case something weird gets entered, I still want to just assume that we at least have one person in our kit, otherwise it's not really going to make a whole lot of sense. Okay, so this guy has an ID, a name, a description, a photo, quantity per person, and units. All right, so if I compare that to what a kit item looks like, a kit item has, what does a kit item have? Kit item has an ID, a name, a description, a quantity, and a quantity unit. It's actually going to have a whole bunch of other things too. We just haven't actually added those yet to the UI or to the back end, but that gives us a start. So I've already forgotten what I just said was in there. So quantity unit, quantity description, name. Checklist for the user. Oh, so they can like check it off. I see. We'll come back to that. I'm just trying to build the base piece of the functionality here. Name, description, quantity, quantity unit. All right, let's see if I can get this right. So name is item.name. Quantity equals, this is the interesting part. So it'll be, well, it's not that interesting. It's not like I'm doing really hard math here, but it's quantity per count times total person count. Got the wrong type of syntax there. It's const. We've got the quantity unit is item.quantity unit, and description quantity or item dot description. And we have other things like photo that we're not really using yet. We don't set the ID here because those get auto-assigned by the backend. Okay, so that's creating the kit items. There's a couple other things that we would do here. We would unit, quantity unit. Oh, yes, thank you. Love it. It's like repair programming. Thanks for catching my mistakes before I even test it. It's good stuff. So the other thing was maybe we'll grab this icon. So the icon will set, and there is a icon here. So it's just this dot icon equals this dot selected base kit dot icon. All right, let's give it a try. So if I create or select this guy and I say I have 2 people and 1 pet, 3 people and 1 pet, and I hit apply, change my icon, that's a good start. And there's my water and food. So I've got 155 units of clean food, clean drinking water, and 62 food. Is this math and does it check out here? We did, that was this one. So we had 5 gallons per person. That does not sound right. What did it do here? It did 31. Oh, you gotta love JavaScript. Gotta love JavaScript. So even though I told it it was a number, let's just do a console log here so that we can see this, because this is one of those just really funny JavaScripty things. Am I in the right place? Yeah. Oh, weird. Okay, well, whatever. I'll log out the total person count, and then I'm also going to do a log of these guys. I have a feeling these are strings, is what happened. Comma. Pets. And that when we added them together, we had like 31 or something silly. Let's have a look, see if my suspicion is correct. So I had 3 of these and 1 of these, and I selected this one. I hit apply. Yeah, so we had, oh, wait, what? 31. Oh, maybe I just entered it wrong. Maybe the, right? Interesting. Anyway, it's not treating those as numbers, it's treating them as strings and concatenating them together so that I get 31 people. Put them people plus pets in a, yeah. I can do that, but I'm not sure actually if that's going to be, we'll see. Let's give it a try. I think I might have to do one other thing. So let's refresh this, clear this, 3-1, apply. Oh, I have to select a kit first. Still 31, so it's treating those as strings. If I do a plus in front of these, it's going to force it to be a number, convert it to a number for me instead of a string. And hopefully that just solves my problem, but let's have a look and see. Yeah, that's better. Okay, now we have 20 units of food and 8 of quantity. So this is just such an annoying thing with JavaScript often. Even though you have a number text field, a number type text field, it's still, the value of it is still a string, not a number. So anytime you're trying to like treat it as a number, you do have to make sure that you're basically parsing it back into a number so that the math happens right. So I was concatenating strings instead of actually doing a number, adding numbers, which is what I intended to do. So now the math checks out at least, and I should be able to create this. And I forgot to give it a name. My standard thing, but it's saved with all the right things, so that's a good start, I think. And there's something I want to make sure I fix though, because looks like this is causing some errors when I go to create a new one. And I think it's related to the select that I added. So let's just make sure that we're not throwing a bunch of errors in the console. And then I think we'll be able to at least call this a good first step on the create from base kit. I'm going to do it as a draft PR though, because I'm really not happy with the UI on it. And then we'll maybe come back and review that with some of the emergency management folks and see if they have a better idea on how we can structure that UI. And I can ask those questions about how many things we actually are dealing with for these base kits. But yeah, let's see if we can get to the bottom of this error. So it's telling me property or method adders is not defined on the instance. View reference join render. Make sure this property is reactive. But what is it referring to? Because it's not really pointing me to anything in particular. Is it doing anything here when I... Okay, so every time I select something from there, property or method adders. Oh, this button. Okay. What it has to do with? Let's get rid of these console logs. I don't want those included in my PR. What is this adders it's talking about? Oh, this guy. Right. I copied this button from inside a slot, a template slot thing, where it was passing these attributes along. So I think that's the source of the problem. Hopefully that gets rid of those console log issues. And clear that. Refresh the page. I don't see a sea of red there anymore. That's good. One last thing I think I could probably do is, like initially when the user comes in here, this is just kind of a something to get us by initially. If you don't have a kit selected, I could probably hide this section of the UI. So I could just do like a simple don't show this v-if this.selected base kit. So I'll only show this section where you specify the number of people and pets and have the apply button if you've actually selected a base kit. That's a very marginal improvement of the UI, I think, but something at least. 0 pets, apply. Cool. Okay, I think that's probably as far as I'm going to get for today's stream. I'm just going to wrap this up, do a PR for what we've done. Thanks for joining and taking part today, helping me out with some typos and getting me to the finish line on this little feature. That is very helpful. What all did we change here? I kind of like to review things before I push them. So we created a base kit API. We created that store that allows us to load that list of base kits. And we load it in the UI and allow the user to apply that base kit to the kit that they're creating. So again, not the best UI, but at least we kind of proved out a few pieces of the back end there, because those were API endpoints that we weren't using, for example. But that gets us somewhere at least. So I'm in the right branch, I believe. Yeah. Create emergency kit from base kit. Get all those, and I'm going to push. And I'll head over to the pull requests here. And we'll just give a little star prefix plus. Oh, learn something today from your stream. Adding plus to parse string numbers to integers. From JS, thank you. Yes, you're welcome. I actually learned that from a coworker very recently. Previous to that, I was doing like I was using number.parseInt as the normal way of doing that, but a coworker recently had that in their PR, the little plus trick, and I've been using it a fair bit ever since. It's a good one. Hopefully it's not too obscure that people don't know what it means when they see it. It's another little trick in your tool belt, at least. All right, create emergency kit from base kit allows user to select from emergency kit. I'll request a PR there from Coding Bandit, who's leading our team of contributors. There we go. Hey, 2 pull requests in one stream. Good stuff. Thanks again, everyone, for joining. And I do this very irregularly. I don't have like a Twitch stream schedule that I can really keep to. It's kind of when I can fit it in with my schedule in life. But I do hope to do this basically whenever the weather's bad and I can't be doing other things with the family outside. Today is a very rainy day here in Calgary, so it's a good day to do a stream. Thanks so much for joining, and we'll see you next time. Bye.